Hi, everyone. This is John Artigo. I am the screenwriter for the upcoming John Draper Captain Crunch movie that we are working on, and it's going to be a very exciting project. Currently, you are listening to the Scene World podcast.
Hello!
Hey, it's the Scene World podcast. That guy over there is Jörg. And this guy over here is what he said.
Exactly.
And this is the Scene World podcast. And in a minute, we are going to be talking to Jeff Schaap, who is producing a film called I Adore My 64.
Exactly.
And it looks awesome. Focusing a lot on the NTSC side of things, which is pretty neat.
On the users, not on the Commodore creators.
Exactly. Not going down the same route. But let's not spoil that.
Not too
the
much.
interview will be coming up in a minute. Before that, we got some news.
Exactly.
Shall I start or shall you?
I mean, well, you can.
Okay. So, I've seen a thing here about on. Where'd it go? Oh my God. Okay. On November 4th, 2023, that's this year. That's a little bit over a month away, month and a half at the time of recording this. There is going to be the Retro Computer Festival 2023. And that's going to be in Cambridge, UK, not America, not Germany. A nice little spot in between from 9 to 5 p.m. Their time. Ticket prices are £10 adult, £7 child. There's concessions, there's families, rates, whatever. They're having Dexter's Tech Lab will be there. Tom Stapleton will be there. Mitch Johns, Jonathan Pallant. Quite a bit of stuff that looks like it's going on, and it looks like a cool thing. It kind of feels like the Vintage Computing Festival that we do in the US, but in the UK. So, it's going to be at the Center for Computing History, Cambridge. So we will put a link to where you can check that out and see what's going on and everything in the podcast description. So that's
for a
one
second
thing.
I thought you would mention a video game con, but I was mistaken.
Well, a video game con, I don't know if that's actually happening. I did see something about what they've been doing lately that I've noticed is more or less just having like a booth or a section in another con. So like they did a vendor's village at the normal place where they do the con on July 15th, which is a while back, which we did talk about in a previous thing. But aside from that, most of what I see is them doing a booth or a room or something or a retro area within a larger con. And it doesn't look like a video game con as its own thing is happening this year. I don't think it happened last year either. With COVID and everything, it's been sort of it's weird. But
I mean, let's go big back here. I mean, a video game con, for most people who don't remember, used to be a Kickstarter crowdfunding.
Yes.
And I got aware of that over a Twitch live stream from Richie Knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
Where Billy Mitchell was present.
Yes.
And Billy Mitchell pledged on the Kickstarter live in the Twitch show. Mm-hmm. And they were actually having an argument if this is going to happen. And I remember you also pledged in the Kickstarter. And you were like, this is too cheap. I can't believe that an entry ticket is just $15. Yeah. That's probably not being successful. And you made a report video about it. And the first thing in the video was like, I guess we have to park on the grass.
It's my brother and I
here.
Park. Yeah. The very first one was packed. It was massive. And this is also a video game con is where we met Paul Salamine, who is the guy that coordinated it. We met Lily Stitches.
Exactly.
Plus, we met Vanka Romanov, who was also part of that there.
Right.
Through that. Billy Mitchell was there. There's a dude in Pennsylvania whose name eludes me right now. That was there. There were a lot of people that we were put in contact with via Video Games Con that are still, like in the case of Lily and whatnot, are still, we are still in contact with and whatnot. And then the second year was also pretty good. The first year was like balls out, like insane. The first year was like, I mean, Kit, the car, from Knight Rider was sitting out front, and everybody there was so much stuff. It was packed. The second year, it was slightly less packed. Still had the same thing. Weirdly different vibes. The burlesque show had to happen with the lights on for some reason, which was really uncomfortable. No Billy Mitchell that year. Some more drama. I don't remember what it was happened after that. Third year, I think there was a third year that I went to it, but I missed the main day. I ended up going on like the Sunday, and by that point, pretty much everything was closed up and not much was happening. And then the Great Quar happened, and we couldn't do anything, and everything sort of,
But I just checked it. It was this year on July 15th.
No. July 15th was the Vendors Village. That's all it was. They didn't do an actual.
Yeah, but on the homepage it says Vendor Village was presented by a video game con.
Right. But that's all it was, as far as I know. They didn't have the con. It was just the vendors area. Exactly. Yes. But they were also.
It's not like they totally canceled it.
Right.
They just made it a different event.
Right. But October 27th through 29th, they're going to be at DerpyCon 2023. That's at the Hyatt Regency New Brunswick in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So they're going to be, I guess, running the retro area of DerpyCon. So. Can still. So I guess they're just, and and November 17th they're going to be at a brewing company. It looks like BTH Brewing, About the Hops Brewing Company. It says grab a round of pixels and pints when we host a gaming event at these brewing companies at a New Jersey brewery. So that should be nice and drunk. So yeah, they are doing things. It's just on a smaller scale than the original video game con, and that could just be because of because when things when the quarantine happened, the funding disappeared. You couldn't do stuff. And so I'm hoping that this is sort of like is a way for them to get, because a lot, it was a popular event. A lot of people went to it.
Which is interesting by how small the promo started.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and yeah, you're right. I was like, there's no possible way that this can be the price of the tickets. And it was. So, I mean, that's, yeah. And it was a great.
I know. I convinced you to pledge on a Kickstarter, and you were like, I'm not sure if this is even happening.
Right. And it was a cool event. And we got to see sides of people that, like, a lot of people, like to take a dump on Billy Mitchell, but that dude was there helping people load up at the end of the night.
Before he came kind of famous for other things.
Right. But nevertheless, like that's still the type of person he is. And when we talked to Casey Ross, she kind of, was talking about that. He's a nice guy, and he was there, random people that he didn't know, he was helping them load their trailers after the thing. You know, like he didn't have to do that. He was, Billy Mitchell. People were taking,
Right.
well, I took a picture with him. Like we'll put it right on the screen right here, so you can see.
Send it to me.
I will. But
awesome.
Yeah.
And also the fact that you didn't like, but your girlfriend liked it a lot. You took autographs. You gave autographs.
That was the second I thought it was the third one. The third one, because that was the one that I went to by myself.
And
my brother
went
to the first two.
SeaWorld flyers.
I signed a SeaWorld flyer. Yes, somebody recognized me when I got out of my car, and they were disappointed that Martin wasn't there.
Yeah.
But they were
cute cattle bear. I remember that.
Yes. Yeah. But they accepted my own signature. Yeah, I signed like 2 or 3 SeaWorld flyers that day. It was
that still
weird and uncomfortable. It was they recognized you at the bakery or something. Yeah, you're the dude that does YouTube videos.
Yeah, I'm the dude doing YouTube videos. Yeah.
But we're also, I don't know. Again, being of English content, I don't know how much that picks up in Germany. So you might be more famous outside Germany than you are in.
But I was on German radio with the magazine. I was on German television.
Yeah.
At Gamescom, we were at German television again. Mm-hmm. And at Adam Wolke with Skyline TV, the biggest live streamer in Germany.
Yeah.
So, and I wish that the media coverage would be more international.
Yeah.
But nice. Right now it's only very focused on my person in Germany.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm happy we got the Floppy Fever interview.
Yeah.
For the book they published, which was actually international. That was amazing.
Yeah, I got that sitting here somewhere because we're in it.
No problem. I can put a picture on it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's on. It's on my Instagram too. You can see it if you want.
Anyway, but you said
before
the recording we should not talk too much about ourselves.
So. Well, that's a different story because we're talking about ourselves in relation to a guest. You see.
Okay. Anyway, other news.
Yes. Other news. There is an update to where is it? Clock Signal, which is apparently a game-changing multi-platform emulator, which has been updated. This thing emulates the C64. Or I'm sorry, that's a lie. Yes, that's a lie.
Yes, no, lie.
It's a lie. It emulates the VIC-20. It emulates the Mac 512 and Mac Plus, the Sega Master System, the ZX80 and 81 and Spectrum, the Acorn Electron, Amstrad CPC, Apple II, II Plus and IIe, Atari 2600, ColecoVision. And it says the Commodore VIC-20 and Enterprise 64-128. I don't know if that's a separate thing. It's on the same line. But
I don't know.
But it emulates a lot of stuff. It has a lot of versatility. It's it runs on Mac OS, Linux,
Windows.
I don't know if it runs on Windows. I see various operating systems. Mac OS. It's native Cocoa and Metal. Desktop Linux. Use Snap. Linux, BSD, and other Unix-based systems uses OpenGL. I don't see anything about Windows. But
OpenGL is usually Windows-based.
It's Mac as well. That's... but they're talking about it in reference to Linux. Either way, it's that has been updated to version... I don't know. And the most recent release has enhanced support for MSX2, precision correcting the 6502's working, aligning them with the way that a regular 6502 works. It's fixing some emulation with the 65816, which is like the 16-bit beefed up version of the 6502. And just stuff like that. There's a GitHub page where you can check it out. We will put it right there-ish.
Yeah.
You can check that out.
Do you have more news?
Yeah, I do have more news. There's also an update to IcyTerm 065, which is a BBS terminal, because BBSs are still a thing, as Q-Link running behind me shows. And IcyTerm has a lot of features, such as good file transfers, good ANSI features. I love ANSI artwork. I always wanted to do ANSI art, but I was kind of like in the Petsky art thing, and it didn't translate well over. Doesn't matter. And it's available for Linux, Mac OS, and Windows this time. And users, you can connect to BBSs using Telnet, SSH, WebSockets, and raw connections. It supports emulation for ANSI BBSs, Avatar, Petsky, Atascii, which is Atari, and ViewData.
Awesome.
Support for X, Y, and Z modem and variants. So yeah, it looks pretty cool. I'm actually going to download it when we finish here, because I'm looking. I would like the one term I have on the Mac is not a great terminal for C64 anyway. It's I can't even think of what it's called. That was really Loud Creek, but I'll let it go. Yeah, I have a terminal, a Petsky terminal on here, CG term, and it's not the greatest of terminals on Mac OS. So I'm hoping this one might be better.
It's one of the most used ones, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah, right. It is, but it's a port of the Windows version, and the Windows version.
I know.
Yeah. But I'm going to give this one a shot, and hopefully that's even better.
Okay, what else?
Also, my last bit is released a few days ago, was Gianna Power Edition 2023, which it's the Gianna sisters with 16 new levels.
My favorite jump run.
And a load of trainers. And it was released by the group Who Cares? And I agree. So we'll have a link to that where you can download Gianna Power Edition 2023 from Who Cares?
Awesome.
And yeah, the only other thing
we do care enough for the news section.
Yeah, the only other thing I got is that there's Kixkey, which is a Petsky version of Kix, QIX, which was a 1981 game arcade, where you got to draw lines that close off parts of a rectangle. It's vintage. It's one of those classic dealies.
And you're talking about the basic version?
I guess it's basic. But there's also a version that's compiled with the Blitz compiler, which is probably when I was a basic programmer, which I guess I still am, because you don't really stop. Blitz was the best compiler that you could get.
I know. So you mean Quix on basic?
Kix.
Yeah, by Roman Werner. We interviewed him already for the historical interview section.
Right.
He is a former employee of Starbyte.
Yes.
The same company that actually worked for now I forgot his name, Oliver Lindau.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about this is that I'm looking at a screenshot from it, and it's just the default Commodore colors, and I feel like they could have spiced it up a bit.
Yes, but he wanted to do it because it has the basic 2 look. and Petsky, and the default color scheme is light blue on dark blue, and he wanted to keep it that way.
Yeah. Maybe.
So
maybe,
I guess
maybe
it's intentional.
Enterprising individual. Maybe I'll even break out all my old basic skills and throw some pizzazz in that and re-release it. I don't know if we can do that. I'm sure we can. Actually, I don't know. It's on
the Scene World Edition.
Yeah, it's on itch.io, so it's probably maybe it's copyrighted. I don't know if I can mess with that, but
I can ask Roman.
I mean, it would just be. I mean, there's really no point to it, but what always bothered me with basic games is when they didn't even bother to change the background color.
People told me 23 years ago Scene World was no point of doing.
Yeah, well, no. I'm just saying, it's always bothered me when there was like a basic program and it didn't even bother to change the background colors. It's like,
I know.
Come on, man. Like it's 2 commands.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my news for today. What you got, my man?
Well, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty DLC.
Oh, okay.
Will be out on the 26th of September with a female main character.
Okay.
It's pretty neat. I played it at Gamescom on the Xbox booth, so not bad. Also, our Dennis Karimani Remute will release his new DOS PC album called Drive into the Future.
Okay. Yeah, I played a bit of that game and I already forgot.
Cyberpunk 20.
Yeah. I think I sent you video of me playing it.
No, you didn't. But
yeah, because I was playing them on my Mac via with the eGPU in Windows. But yeah, it seemed like a good game. But yeah, I didn't get too far into it because I just don't have time to play games.
You're too much busy for.
I really want to sit down and be a gamer. Like I really want to be a gamer, and I just cannot do it. I cannot commit to it.
Well, this is like me. I'm single. No other responsibilities next to myself.
Yeah.
I can play next to work and Scene World, but mostly I do Scene World, not playing.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. Yeah, I wish, like I said, like I would love to be a gamer and have that kind of, have that ability to sit down and like really get into something and whatnot. And it's just a matter of like, the time just doesn't exist for me. And it's like, it's a shame because I really want to be, I want to play games and do that stuff. And it's just like I No Man's Sky is my hour a night game. It's what I do to make myself tired so I can go to sleep. Is run a couple of missions on No Man's Sky and then I fall asleep. And Laura kicks me because I'm doing it in bed and I'm falling asleep.
Well,
but that's
it's a nice game.
Yeah. It is a good game. Did you hear that Starfield? Someone figured out that actually it's you can actually, it's closer to No Man's Sky than they thought. Like someone figured out a way. I guess if you're on a planet and you're exploring, there's like a wall at a certain point. Like you can't get past that because it's not dynamically generated. Like No Man's Sky, you can fly through the atmosphere, just keep going on a planet till you go because it's all procedurally generated. This isn't. So if you walk far enough in one direction, you're gonna hit a wall. And then there's like a load screen or whatever, and then you go to the next sector or something.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody figured out that if you change the ini file, like you can turn off those walls, and you can actually just walk across the planet.
Wow.
I think
Send me a link to that.
Send
me a link to that.
I think it can cause crashes, but it definitely, like, you can do it.
Awesome. Anyway, other news.
Yes.
Nintendo released only for subscribers of their online service F-Zero 99. That means 99 people can play online against each other.
Very nice.
And it was a very big surprise because Nintendo didn't do anything with F-Zero in years.
Right.
And now for them to release, and this game was a surprise. Yeah.
Have
to drink. Yeah.
A swig of your hard beverage.
My hard
Coke and Fanta.
Fanta and Coke mixture.
This is my regular, just not Fanta and Coke. You can get Fanta here, but I just don't. Although he was telling me that this is orange Fanta and Coke, which I've never, as a U.S. guy, that never would have occurred to me.
Yeah,
cherry Coke is one thing.
It's a European thing. In Germany, it's around in 70 years.
Now I'm thinking, like, orange liqueur and Coke might actually be good. I've got orange liqueur upstairs. I've never thought of mixing it with Coke.
Orange Fanta and Coke, 50-50.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've got like an orange liqueur, like an alcohol.
Oh, and, no, it's not alcohol.
I know, but I'm thinking, like, if orange and Coke go together with the Fanta, then maybe the orange and the liqueur will go with cola. It never occurred to me to try mixing them. That might be something new. We may have just invented a new drink.
Oh gosh.
We'll call it
anyway,
the world.
Before we go into much alcoholics, other news. Well, as I said, last news.
Mm-hmm.
The German Männerquatsch podcast has released his episode 153.
The who podcast? Say that again. You kind of burbled.
Well, it's not a burble. It's really the name. It's called Männerquatsch podcast. The German
Männerquatsch. Okay.
Yeah, German podcast.
Okay, just start that part all over again, because the way you said it was like the German podcast. It was like just kind of like one big long thing, and I was like, what? Like I couldn't. It was like mecha magic. What? Huh?
I thought I used it intentionally.
Oh.
Anyway.
Go back.
So the German Männerquatsch podcast in episode 153 released interviews with the retro area booth people, vendors,
yeah,
including me from Scene World and Eva Ramona Rohleder from A Twisted Tale,
who was also at our booth.
Exactly, who was at the side of our booth. And
awesome, beautiful.
If you know German, that's probably interesting.
I'll listen to it, even though I don't understand. I can make out some. I've talked to you enough to know some German to be able. I can't talk it, but I can understand some of it.
I highly doubt this, but never mind.
No. I'm pretty good with that. I can't say what you're saying, but I can tell what you're talking about.
Okay. Anyway, that would be all my news.
That's all I got.
So you got to send me a whole list of things.
They're right here. They're on my screen. They're ready to go. I already put them together because I came prepared today.
Me? Oh, nice. Don't forget to include this hint.
What?
About Starfield.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Whatever, and, that is a video or whatever.
Yeah, and I got the picture of me and the dude, Mitchell. And what other picture did you want?
Just that.
No, there was a second picture.
Well, of the book, but I
book.
can.
Got it. Yes.
Well, I can just take a picture of the book from the homepage.
Yeah, no, but I've got actual pictures of us with me holding the book in where I am. So
nice.
So
anyway, so let's move to USA to Jeff Schaap.
Schaap, yes.
And listen to the stories.
Yeah.
And don't
cool
forget to pledge for the crowdfunding.
Yes.
So the movie can actually get released.
Yes, he has. It's not a Kickstarter. It's a different thing, but you should totally do it. And I think during the interview, I think Jörg and I both pledged.
I pledged for the Blu-ray level.
I didn't go that high.
75.
I didn't do that high, but and I don't think I said I did it during it, but I did.
I said I registered for Seat and Park.
Yeah, you mentioned it.
Which is actually the crowdfunding platform.
Yeah.
Especially for movies and film creators.
Right.
I've never heard of Seat and Park before.
Well,
did you hear from them before?
No, I did not.
Yeah. Well, at the time of release, there will be 12 days left.
Yeah.
So make sure to not miss it.
Right.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Today we have another guest as always, and today it's Jeff Schaap from I Adore My 64, the new upcoming documentary about, the Commodore 64.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you. Appreciate being on.
Awesome. Yeah,
it's rare that we get an NTSC view of the 64 on here.
That's right.
Because most of it, I'm usually the NTSC guy.
Oh wow. Okay, so, represent NTSC.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as I told you in the emails before, when I started with Scene World 23 years ago, people in Europe thought America is dead. There's nothing regarding Commodore 64 anymore.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's as active as the scene in other places in the world, but in the last 10 years, it's very, very much kicked up.
Oh yeah, especially with the internet and I mean back then, we're talking early 2000s when there wasn't really too much communication and you couldn't just now everything is NTSC fixed, even if it's you got to kind of jump through hoops to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And we will be talking today about your crowdfunding campaign regarding that movie.
Awesome. Yeah.
Which is amazing because I remember emailing with you and you were a bit on the fence about including Europe. And I'm glad to hear that finally you made the decision. If there is enough funding, you might include Europe as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of what we'll be able to do, of course, will be dependent on funding. I don't know of any independent film or even any major blockbuster film that isn't totally dependent on money and time. So, yeah, we'd love to do as much as we reasonably can with the resources that we have. So, yeah, I mean, definitely I recognize that the C64 is a global phenomenon, not just something restricted to the U.S. But yeah, we definitely want to be smart about it and not commit to something that it's not realistic to ever complete, and not promise the world and then have to cut way back because of the funding that we may or may not receive. So yeah, we're trying to set expectations correctly, and so there's a lot of campaigns out there sometimes for whether it's films or other things where people get into promising too much and then end up disappointing and frustrating people. So we're just trying to walk that line really carefully.
Right.
I mean, how did that start? How did you get involved in the Commodore 64 and then decide to make a movie about it?
Well, my personal history goes back to when I was 10 years old. We were actually, it's kind of funny, we were coming home from vacation and actually from where I live now in Florida, but at the time I lived in Michigan, grew up in Michigan. And we came back, and there had been a huge snowstorm, and our entire house was flooded. Pipes had burst, and my parents had actually hidden a Commodore VIC-20 in the basement. And unfortunately, it got ruined because of that flood. But fortunately, with the insurance money, they decided, oh, well, let's upgrade. Let's buy the next best thing that just came out, the Commodore 64. And it's no disrespect to the VIC-20 or people who love the VIC-20. The VIC-20 is great, but I'm a little happier that I ended up with the 64. And I mean, a lot of people back then, a lot of kids my age, I definitely got right into playing games on it. I think I know for a fact the first cartridge I had was Grid Runner by Jeff Minter, and just played that like crazy. And for the first couple of years, only ever had cartridges and I guess cassette drive. So what I could play was kind of limited. Yeah, it's kind of unusual, I think. For the U.S.
Yeah, that is a lot of what year are we talking about? Because
this would have been like 83.
Okay, because I came into it in 86.
Okay.
With this exact machine behind me.
Oh wow! Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I got the disc drive, and the same thing was the only game I had for the longest time was the Frogger cartridge.
There you go. Well, no load wait times.
Yeah,
I guess that's
yeah. Yeah, and the rest of it was
advantage.
spent with my grandfather and I trying to type in the programs in the manual and failing every single time.
Yup, I did stuff like that. I got Run magazine, which I think was popular in the States, but not overseas, and typed in a lot of listings. Tried to delve into BASIC, and I think even once in 7th grade, I was like, I could kind of sense that okay, whoever is creating these games, they're not doing it in BASIC. It's way too slow, But again, there's no internet. There's no way to really find out and find the secret sauce to doing it. And I did manage to figure out that it had something to do with assembly language, and went to the library and got some books out, some probably college level books on assembly language, and it was just totally discouraged. I couldn't figure it out, couldn't understand it. It was way too high level for me, and kind of gave up on that front. But did have a lot of fun. My school, they ended up buying 20 Commodores for a computer lab.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. It's kind of unusual for
It is
for a school, and it was a small school, and I could wow all my friends with what I knew about BASIC, but never became a coder. Not really that smart.
See, I got into programming in BASIC. I did a couple of things. Lodestar was big here in the U.S. too. Got my publishing contracts from over there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had Apple IIs at school, and you had to do programming on that. And I remember bringing my C64 in and like having an argument with the teacher over which was better.
Of course. What's really funny is I've had some of these conversations, and it's interesting how whether you're from Europe or different regions of the States, what your experience was growing up and what computers you saw. And honestly, all growing up, even on into high school, I never saw an Apple II. I saw one one time. Yeah, one time in 2nd grade. I remember the teacher's son brought it in, and it was at the back of the room, and we never did anything.
Wow.
We never did anything with it, so I never used it. And it wasn't until later on, when I guess I would have been maybe 5th grade, that then my school I got a Commodore 64 at home, and then my school got a bank of them, and and the only other home computers I saw growing up of that era, the early 80s and stuff, I had a neighbor with a TI 99 4A, and I had another neighbor with the Coco, I think the Coco 2, right? Coco Color computer, and that was it. And but a lot of people will tell me, oh yeah, I grew up with an Apple II, or I saw an Apple II, or Atari 400 and 800. I never once saw an Atari or 400 or 800 anywhere, not in a store, not anywhere.
I'm from New Jersey, and
Okay.
and it was a lot of the same. I never saw. I had a C64. Nobody else knew what that even was.
Really?
Everything
Okay.
was Apple IIs, and
Wow.
one friend had a Coleco Atom, which
Oh
was the
yeah.
worst
Okay.
machine ever made.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I did have one buddy at school who I went over to his house one time, and I'm like, "What is that?"
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. And I ended up with an Atari 800 XL
Oh, okay.
that I found at a garage sale for like $10.
Oh,
But
wow.
I never used it because I didn't have anything to plug into. It just had
Oh,
the
okay.
machine itself, you know.
Yeah.
But like Amiga and stuff like that, I never saw. I never actually touched an Amiga until I got this like 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, yeah, I saw an Amiga in high school, but it was only
Mhm.
because the Amiga, there was like, I mean, the short explanation would be they had like a little video production department that was sort of connected to the school I was going to, and they got a toaster set up. So I feel like in the States during that era, if you
Yeah.
saw an Amiga at all, it was a big box Amiga,
Yep.
and it was running a video, a
Yes.
video toaster. And then when I
Yeah.
went to college and I became, got into filmmaking, became a communications major, they had a studio. Their studio was all run on the video toaster because that was the heyday of the video toaster.
Right.
And so I spent time on an Amiga 2000, and then at my first job, it was an Amiga 2000 running the video toaster. And yeah, but I never saw. Well, I'm sorry. One time in college, I saw a guy who went to my school, and he had a 1200, Amiga 1200, and he was like showing it to me and stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I didn't even know. Like the only thing I knew about Amiga at the time was the 2000,
Right.
and I think maybe the 2500, and then later on the 3000 and the 4000. And the college I went to used the 3000 to run some like video stuff. We had conferences that we would do, and they would do 3-camera switch to that. So like well, Commodore in general, it's like it just kept being a part of my life. I started out with a
really.
64, and then went to college and used Amigas like just because they were there, and that's what I was learning on. And then at my first job, the first editing, video editing and production job that I had, it was all based on an Amiga. Even the edit controller, typically you'd have an edit controller that because it was all tape based editing, you could control the decks and do your edits. Well, even that was controlled by the Amiga with a special piece of software called Amulink. And I don't know, it's probably long forgotten, but yeah,
I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, it just kept being a part of my life for quite a long time. And after that, I kind of like, the PC era kind of took over for me. I used PCs for a long time, up until about like 2018 or 17, somewhere in there. And with the birth of my second daughter, I was just up late at night, taking care of her and stuff like that, and was poking around on YouTube and found a video by Dan Wood from Retro Hour Podcasts, and he was talking about, oh, you can connect your Commodore 64 to the internet today through Wi-Fi, and I'm like, what?
We're doing it right now.
There you go. I know there's Quantum Link back there.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. And that sort of kicked off reignited my interest in it, to be totally honest. Like, I got a C64C later. I started out, the first Commodore I had was a bread bin, and then that blew up. I think the VIC-2 probably blew up. And I ended up getting a C64C, just like the one behind you, and it had GeoS packaged in, and that was crazy and amazing. I was like, I can't believe 64 can do this, and used that all the way up until college. So yeah, I still have that one today. So I got that from my parents and was sort of messing with it, and like I thought, oh, you know what? I'd really like to get a bread bin because that's what I had originally. I'm like, I'll just find one on eBay, and well, now over my left shoulder there's like 30 of them, and different Commodore machines I never had before, like the 1200 and a 500, Amiga 500, Amiga 1200, and even a PET Like I eventually got a pet, and which is
it's amazing when you realize
task.
you've grown up and you can have these things. It's like,
Right.
ooh, I'm a grown up. I can actually buy things that I couldn't have when I was.
Yeah, you don't have to fight with your parents anymore.
That's right. And yeah, you know, I just, like a lot of people, I wanted to experience like all the things I'd missed out on. So I remember seeing a Commodore 16 when I was growing up and just like not understanding what it was.
Yeah.
And so I have a 16 and a +4, a couple +4s.
I still don't understand what the +4 was.
Well, I mean, I was doing an interview with Bill Hurt once, and he said that actually it was more successful in East of Europe.
Yeah, you know, the +4 kind of gets, and the 16, they kind of get a bad rap. And, you know, I think Bill, in particular, Bill Hurd, has taken a lot of unfair flack because he's so visible in the Commodore community and kind of gotten criticized for like, why was that? Why did you do that? And it's like, well, you know, it's like all of us at our jobs, you know, it's like not everything is decided by me. There's people above me making decisions about, you know, the way things are going to go and how we're going to market things and sell things. So
he also did the 128, which is probably one of the best machines ever made.
Right. Yeah, that's the 128. That's another machine that I have like 3 of those.
Yeah, I got one. It's under the
there you go.
tarp.
Oh yeah, right there. And like I remember, you know, a few years after I had my 64, actually my pastor got one, and he was showing me, and I'm like, man, that is amazing. And then he's like, now watch this, and he types Go 64, and my head exploded. I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, this is a Commodore 64, and it's a new computer, and actually, you know, it's even more than that. But that was all
3 computers. Yeah.
Yeah,
even a CPM machine. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's crazy what it can do. And like I have a lot of respect for Bill and the other people that worked on it, because I mean, look at what they got that single machine to do and made it so incredibly versatile, you know. But like a lot of things, you know, it comes down to marketing. The best product doesn't always win, you know. If that were the case, then, you know, we were watching Betamax instead of VHS. So, you know, I have respect for all those guys who did that early engineering and were, you know, sometimes sort of the victim of Commodore's poor marketing decisions and business decisions. But yeah, it was 2018 or so when I started to get back into the scene, collecting my own machines and learning how to repair things and stuff like that, you know, just for fun, and trying out new games and new hardware. You know, did eventually get a Wi-Fi modem. I was shocked to see that there's still BBSs around, you know. Quantum Link, and like, even, I don't know if you guys would recall, but even Habitat, I guess there's some implementations of Habitat. I don't know how many people out there would remember.
We had an interview with the 2 people, actually.
Yeah. I'm on Habitat as well. Yep.
Oh, awesome. So like,
see, I remember when I actually used it in real life. It was Club Carib. It was the new version of Habitat.
Oh man, that takes me back. Yeah. I think at the time I couldn't use it because of the long distance.
Oh yeah.
Calling to get on it.
Yeah, I got in trouble for that too.
The only thing online that I was allowed to do was, I had another buddy in the town next to us, and we were Commodore pals. You know, we get together, and you know, a lot of what we did was play Infocom games together and try to figure them out, you know, and stuff. But then he got a modem, and I'm like, what is that? And his dad was kind of explaining what it was, and then I don't know how, but I was able to convince my parents to get me one, and we would just connect a terminal, like 300 baud, you know, connect his terminal, my terminal, we could type back and forth. And my sister walked in, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm talking to Daniel. She's like, why don't you just pick up the phone and call him on the phone? I'm like,
that's no fun.
We were instant messaging, man. We were like way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I figured out pretty early on that the modem was set at 300. I had the 1200 baud one, but yeah.
Oh wow.
But if you call it the TTY numbers, like the you know, for the hearing impaired, that any old terminal works. You can do it from the C64. So I used to do that all the time.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. It was a lot of fun exploring the different things it could do. Like, I think at one point I know at one point I had a really awful voice recognition headset, and you could play like blackjack with it, and you could say "hit me," and all this other stuff. And trying to think what other hardware I had. I wanted to get a hard drive. If I, at first I didn't even understand what it was.
Yeah.
But of course those were insanely expensive, and probably only people.
And they still are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. They've only gotten worse over time. Now it's impossible almost to find one, and if you do, they're insanely expensive. But yeah, I think the other thing that really surprised me was, coming back to things in 2018, was just discovering sort of the global community that had been knit together through the internet. And people all over the world that were still developing hardware, developing software, websites, groups, even here in the States on like meetups, like of people, and not always like Commodore specific, but retro computer meetups, like I've been to a couple just recently, and like I just can't. It's shocking that like on some levels that people are just still so into the 64. And the other thing that I really appreciated is everybody is just like really community oriented and helpful. Like if you have a question, it's like you don't want to be the noob, and like at least in my experience, everybody's been like really nice and like tries to sort of like pay it forward. Like, oh, people help me, so I want to help them.
It used to be for the most part. It used to be a different. Yeah, it used to be when you were the new guy. You had to fight to get there. But now it's like it's a lot more friendly, and everyone's kind of better, closer knit now because
that's good.
Yeah.
It sounds like maybe you guys kind of joined the scene or into the scene before I came along, but up to this point anyway, it's been a good experience.
For me, it's actually April 1st, 1998. So actually, I celebrated 25th year's anniversary this year. That's when I joined the scene.
Good Lord, I was like 1992.
Like I said, I started late. So for me, it's 25 years.
Yeah, now. I'm a newborn at the.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Took me like 3 years to get into a real demo
round, so.
But yeah, I started thinking about like, wow, how can I really contribute to this community? I'm not a programmer. I'm definitely not a hardware designer, but I've been a filmmaker for 25 years and had the opportunity to do a lot of really cool things. And, there are a lot of YouTube videos and even documentaries out there, but, they sort of focus on Commodore as a company, and the major figures within it and the history. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad that those things exist and they're out there. And some of the people that, are no longer with us, like Jack Trammell, like, there was a documentary that featured an interview with him not too long before he passed away. And, his son Leonard's given interviews and documentaries and stuff like that. And I think that's really great. And that it's awesome that is preserved. But kind of what I saw as a gap was there's not really a whole lot about the Commodore community today. And I wondered, like, how many people would be interested or would be surprised to find that, wow, there's this huge, massive group of people around the world that are still into the 64, because that was my experience. I was like, oh yeah, like I thought, oh, well, there's probably some people still into it. And I was just blown over by how many there are, and like, all the gatherings that go on around the world, based around C64 stuff. And like, it's just crazy. And so I thought, well, maybe this is a way that I can, again, pay it forward, give back to the community, is like, let's create a film about the community about the 64, but also about the community as it exists today, and personalities and people who are collecting, people who are preserving, people who are developing new hardware. And that's really what kicked it off. And I think that I spent, from about 2018 up till now and ongoing, getting to know the online community and people around the world and becoming a part of it and sort of hopefully earning the right to do something like that, not just showing up out of the blue and having no interest or no investment in the community and just saying, well, I want to make a movie about this. It's like, well, I've been around for a while now. And so, yeah. And sort of the first step, I think, in my own mind is like, well, we need a proof of concept, because I think so many films, it's like that go into a campaign effort, they don't really have too much usually to show, unless they're just raising funds for post-production. Then they might. But if it's like they haven't even shot anything yet, there's not a lot to go on. So I'm like, I think in order for people to really get behind this, we have to have some amount of it shot so that they can really see this is what it's going to be like. This is the approach. This is kind of the mode we're going to take. So that was sort of the first effort. And, we got 4 interviewees in, and they're amazing. And I was shocked that some of them said yes.
Yeah, I mean, I had a look at the crowdfunding. I mean, Anthony Becker we had in the podcast already. Yep. Live Bloomquist awesome. We even had in the Twitch live show where he showed off his net racer. And Bo Zimmerman is known for taking over Jiffy DOS and stuff.
Yeah,
so Bo is really got some good figures here. Or David Murray.
Yeah,
8-bit guy.
Oh, Zimmerman. He developed that the Bo modem, the Wi-Fi modem, and I sold mine, and he bought it on eBay, and I was like, I can't charge you, man. And he's like, no, it's cool. I
Isn't that really says something though right there about the kind of person he is?
Yeah.
Like, he's tremendously kind, and he has dedicated. So he has contributed so much, but he would never like talk about that or trumpet that. Like, if you ask him directly, he'll talk to you about it, but he's not going to run around and be like, well, I did this and I did that. And it's like, but he's done so much that
may I say one thing?
Yeah, sure.
One thing? Unfortunately, you wrote him wrong a couple of times on the screenshot and in the text. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say. Sorry to say.
No, that's all right.
Because you wrote Zimmerman with an E, but it's actually
it's a proof of concept.
I got hammered on that right away.
An A. So
you're right. And that's why you should have independent people spell check your stuff. But yeah, that got pointed out pretty much right away. So we'll definitely have to correct that. But yeah, he was just awesome. I think we sat with him for like 2 hours, and like he took us through his collection, and then he had this is a part that doesn't appear in the preview, but he runs a local users group, and they all came in that day, and they were all hanging out and talking and showing each other projects that they're designing and working on, and it was really cool. It's just sort of a microcosm of I'm sure what's happening around the world. But he was great. All of them were really great. Leaf was awesome, and he gave us a great interview at World of Commodore. And even David, I thought, when I emailed David Murray, I was like 90% this is going to be a no.
Yeah,
90% chance. And I would say like it probably wasn't even 2 hours later, he emailed me and was like, yeah, like I think that's great. I think this is a great effort, and I'd like to be a part of that, of doing that. And I was like, I had to double check and make sure it wasn't fake. But he was great too, and he gave us a really in-depth interview too. I think it was at least an hour and 40 minutes. And he's a busy guy. I don't know how he even has time to sleep. But
I mean, I was feeling a bit bad for you because you have been hit hard on Facebook by Europeans saying, why are you only including Americans in the preview? And then AJ saw that and he was telling me like, why we are not asked. And then I was like, okay, let me email him.
We're kind of Americans. Like, I'm here. There's
right.
a couple. We got a couple Americans here.
Oh yeah.
so you got a bit of backslash.
Yeah.
There at the beginning.
I mean, that's the difficulty, right? Is there's no way you can cover it all. Like, there's so much going on. There's so many people that are involved, and there's so many dimensions. Like, just the demo scene. Like, you could do a whole documentary just about the demo scene, no doubt.
There have been a couple, actually.
Yeah.
There
you go. And I mean, or you could do a whole documentary about hardware development or just about software development, or just so many dimensions to what's going on. It's really, really crazy. So I wish we could just do it all and cover it all. And I don't know if a documentary would be the right format for that. Like, if someone wanted to have ongoing TV series, then maybe they could. But there's, like I was saying before, there's always limiting factors. Human resources limited, time is limited, money's limited, but we want to do our best to sort of represent the community as best we can.
Right.
I mean what people don't realize how much effort it was 23 years ago to make a magazine that runs on NTSC and Paul. I remember being on the phone with Lee Novak that did the Mr. Mouse system for Lodestar, and asked him, can we borrow your system and make a disk mag out of it running on Europe as well? As I asked for permission from everybody, and for the first 10 issues we even had no loading system that would work on all drives, because nobody was doing a loading system that would work on American machines and on the Europeans as well.
Most disc mags of the time were using, demo scene derived things that were made specifically for that used the hardware tricks in the 1541 and whatnot. And so to get something that's going to run for the 1581 and the 1541 and to be a fast load and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was a.
And then there came me, and I said, I want to run it on every hardware you could think of. And I mean, it even runs on the DTV.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So.
Yeah. I have a couple of those. And that's another thing that I was totally unaware of that, before 2018, that such a thing existed. And, it's amazing that, Jerry and the other people involved were able to reverse engineer that. That's just nuts. And what that thing can do, inside of a joystick.
Yeah.
Running on batteries.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's another whole thing of like I was saying, just hardware you could do a whole documentary about. So there's just a ton of ground to cover. But the whole NTSC PAL thing was something I was totally unaware of, because once again, growing up, I actually, my closest buddy who had a Commodore 64, he was actually from Germany, him and his family. So I knew that it was popular over there, but I didn't realize that that there was a difference between games written for the PAL system and games written for NTSC. I probably didn't even know there were different standards at the time. But I'd run into it every once in a while where I get get some cracked games from him, and I'm like, why don't these work? It's like they'd start up and then freeze or whatever, and I'm like, in my mind back then I was like, must be a bad copy. Yeah, you gave me a bad copy.
I still can't. All the music that I've listened to that was PAL music that I've heard it as fast. It's fast, on NTSC. Then I hear it in the actual speed it's supposed to be played at. No, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's supposed to be the speed I heard it at.
I once did an interview with Chris Crick, who worked as a composer for Epics, and he told me that back then they didn't know about, even Epics themselves didn't know about the details of the the speed difference for the music and stuff. They just make sure that the games wouldn't crash, and then they were done,
Well, that's all I used to code demos. If it works on both and there aren't many major glitches, that's good.
Yeah. It's just not something, we experience anymore these days too much. I mean, I guess there's regionalized console games in some instances, but the fact that the computer is based on a be compatible with a certain video signal.
But it's still a thing. It's still a thing nowadays, and most people don't know that. For example, HDMI is still 60 or 50 hertz, and that is actually when the C64 Mini was released. Bill Murray was one of the people that said, "I got my prototype from UK, and I couldn't. I had to try 3 monitors until I found one that could handle the pulse signal, because the difference between Europe and America is, here in Europe, all TVs in the 90s generally can handle the NTSC signal. But American TVs, even to this day, even the modern TFT LCD TVs, cannot handle the pulse signal most of the time for whatever reason. Probably just cost reduction or whatever.
Yeah, just being cheap.
Yeah. Exactly. So, how can we make this the cheapest? Of course, that was Commodore's approach too.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
You can't blame them. They're trying to make money.
Yeah.
But it's it's been quite a journey getting to this point with the film, and it's been a lot of fun, but it's also been a ton of work. And I think that probably promoting the film and the campaign has been as much work as actually shooting it and editing it and getting a 10-minute preview together. So that was something I kind of heard tangentially that was true, but I was like, oh, come on, that seems like an exaggeration. But the reality is, it's not.
Then you get emails from jackasses like us being like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? You got a film.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I understand people. People are going to have opinions, and that's no problem at all. And that's not something that I have a problem with at all. People have thoughts, people have ideas, and so do I, and let's get together and talk about them. I think whenever you do something like this, you have to prepare yourself for the fact that there are going to be some people that are just out there to try and poke the bear. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, you probably have, the movie Indie Game, the movie, and Phil Fish, who developed Fez, he was talking about that. He was like, I wasn't prepared for this army of jerks out there who were just gonna come after me and drag me down and try to just insult me all the time. And to be fair, I've only had a very small amount of that where people just come on with comments that are just on the video or emailing me or this is a waste of time, and Commodore 64 is a relic and it's irrelevant, and it's like, what?
I mean,
have a good day.
Yeah. I mean, you're not the first one having this issue. I remember in 2016, we have been the only ones that were interviewing. Now I forgot his name. Darren Mailburn, who did the C64 Mini on Indiegogo as a crowdfunding campaign. And he was, as you know, the inventor, the concept brain behind the DTV. And nobody wanted to talk to him back then in 2016. Everybody was like, this is going to be vaporware. And it was so important for him to do this podcast interview that actually we made this over the phone while he was on holidays on Spain.
Wow.
From his hotel room. So,
wow.
Just to understand, the retro community can be very nasty at times.
Yeah.
But it comes to a new project.
At times.
Yeah. There are those people everywhere. And some of the more modernized versions of the 64 are emulators and stuff. Like there are just people who are haters on anything like that. Like they think original hardware is the only thing, and anything that's not original hardware is just bad. Even I mean, like the C64 and the C64 Mini, I feel like have gotten a lot of just flack. It's like, not everybody wants to invest the sort of time and effort into like getting a original machine, figuring out how to hook it up to a display. It's like, they got kids, they got family, they got a job. They just kind of want to relive some of their, fond memories of it. And so like for them, it's like, yeah, a Mini or a C64 Maxi, that's a great answer for them, and that's okay. But there are some people who are just like, that's not a 64, blah, and
I've always looked at it as in that it even if they're just getting it to play some games or stick an SD card in there with some new stuff in there, still it's expanding a user base for a compatible ISK machine.
Yeah, agree 100%. And like that's how I feel about Vice. Like for some people, that's the level of commitment that they want, and that they can handle. Like, oh, get the software and I can play some of the old stuff that I used to play back in the day. And so and there's for any new thing you want to name, there's some detractors out there. I know people who don't like the Mega 65 and
I'm still waiting on my demo copy of the Mega 65, guys. I'm still waiting for my demo version.
If you're listening,
review.
The hard part. Yeah, we've seen some cool stuff. We've seen two original in the 4 interviews we did. We saw 2 Commodore 65s, like real Commodore 65s, but I've yet to see a Mega 65. And actually, Anthony Becker was like, I might get mine before you come out, but it didn't happen. But I'd love to see one.
Did you touch the C65?
I was allowed to touch it. I didn't ask to turn it on.
Yeah. I did too, though. I was a little bit more covert.
Yeah, that's amazing. Anthony Becker had one, and Bo has one, and they like turn them on, and I'm like, man, I'd be too afraid. I actually have this is the the jewel of my collection, which is not that big, but I randomly bought a VIC-20 off somebody off Facebook. It's the cheapest VIC-20 I've ever purchased. It was like $30, and I got it, and I had a penultimate cartridge from The Future Was 8-Bit, which is just a great outfit. Awesome. I think they're awesome. And I put that in there and fired it up, and I ran a diagnostic, and it came back that the kernel ROM was like unknown. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. I wonder if that's unusual. And, I posted on a group, and like Bo answered right away. He's like, that's an undocumented ROM. Like, we need to dump that. And then the serial number on it was 50,150. But I didn't know that like the serial numbers for the NTSC models started at 50,000. So like this, to my knowledge, now someone's going to hear this and be like, no, I have one that's earlier. But to my knowledge, like looking up some of the preservation sites and stuff, this is the earliest, oldest VIC-20 in the United States, and I just randomly ended up with it.
Awesome.
So I don't like turning that one on. Get scared,
I mean, sometimes you just have to be lucky. I got an 82 silver label model from European model from the C64, and I got it for 200 euros just because it was so dirty on the picture, and somebody drilled a hole in it, and so nobody bid on it because it was in such in such a visual bad shape, So I won the auction. First thing I did is I replaced one of the labels, the power label, to cover the hole, and cleaned it. And now I got a fully working silver label. And since in Germany and Europe, it was released end of '82, so the silver label is even rarer in Europe than in America.
Okay.
So the PAL version is even more rare to get.
Wow.
And
the flicker bug.
Exactly, it still has this sparkle flicker.
Yeah. The sparkle bug. Yeah.
The famous sparkle flicker.
What games does that affect? The sparkle bug. Does anybody know?
Not really. It's just really basic games only.
Okay.
And
they just fixed it by making the sparkle the color of the screen. So,
exactly. Yes.
Like the bug is still there. It's just
exactly on newer usership revisions, they just implement a routine that magically changes the background color of the sparkle. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
It was actually a Bill Hurt who made a presentation, one of the VCF meetings. He explained how they not fixed the bug by not causing a compatibility issue with basic programs and stuff.
Yeah, they were pretty smart about that kind of stuff, I feel like. But yeah. So what is for the two of you, what's your personal history with the 64? Did you grow up in the 64, grow up on something else?
Well, for me, I got mine when I was 8 in 1990 for my birthday from my grandfather. And before, I was sitting on my grandfather's 64 when I was 5. So it was like 87, 88. That was my first touch with computers. So for me, it is the entry point, even though I came late to the game because I'm a bit younger than you guys.
Yeah, with me, they had Apple IIs in school on the big carts that they'd bring around to the classrooms, and you'd have to, wait in line to use the Bank Street Raider for 5 seconds, and then, have to pass it off to the next person, and I always wanted a computer, but what I wanted was like you ever watch Inspector Gadget?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Penny's computer book. That's what I was when I wanted a computer. That's what I had no idea. I had no concept of what I wanted. It was just like a computer book. And my grandparents got me a C64 for Christmas in '86, and I was 8.
86. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was your first computer at home.
That was the first computer at home. Yeah, that was the first computer in the neighborhood, as far as I know. Nobody had it.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and then 3 years later, I got a PC. 386. So I totally skipped the Amiga.
Wow. Yeah, I kept the 64 until I used that up through high school, and then I wanted to upgrade to Amiga, and I saved up my money to get a 1200, and then Amiga, and then Commodore went out of business. My upgrade came in the form of a 128, and I used that until about 2001.
Wow. Now, did you know other people who had Amigas in the States?
Nope.
Not a one? Okay.
Like I said, I never even saw one in person until I got this thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I wonder what kind of drove your interest to get one. Was it just because it was a Commodore computer?
Well, I got those
more advanced.
You remember this the 10X Computer Express catalogs that you'd get in the mail for? It was like the everything book for the Commodore 64 and whatnot.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't seen that, but okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we used to get that. It would show all the software, but there was always a section in the back for the Amiga.
Yeah.
And it was a Commodore computer, and the specs that they had on there looked amazing. And I had no idea. Like, if I had gotten an Amiga, I would have been completely out of my depth because I wouldn't have known what to do with it. Because I was so
play games.
Well, I mean, when I eventually did, when my 128 was having problems, and I ended up getting a Mac, like I didn't know what do I do with this? I've got a 64 that I've got everything on for the last however many years, 20 years or so, and now I've got to somehow transition over to this new machine that isn't at all compatible with what I've been using. Even my text files and stuff that I've saved, everything's backwards because of the PET-ski.
Oh right, yeah. Now of course there's tools for all that stuff, but figuring that out back then was probably really bad.
yeah. I ended up hooking up, just a null modem between the two and just copying, just sending files from one to the other.
And did that work pretty well?
Not well. It took days and days and days because I had tons of disks and stuff, but
wow.
And I still haven't got, and that was, like, again, 2000, 2001. I still got folders I haven't gone through.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty incredible, though, that you were able to figure that out and get it transferred over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a few questions about the campaign, actually.
Sure.
I wonder, why did you go with Seed and Spark and not Kickstarter?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
Indiegogo?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I've never heard of Seed and Spark in my life. I don't know what that is even.
So to be totally honest, when, I probably started working on the film in earnest in 2020, and, it was sort of just a foregone conclusion at first for me, like, oh yeah, it's going to be Kickstarter because, Kickstarter's the 800-pound gorilla. Mm-hmm. And, the more I spent time, like, sort of watching YouTube videos about other people trying to do films on this scale that I'm working in, and just independent YouTube filmmakers talking about different platforms, and the more I became convinced that Seed and Spark was probably a better pick for us. And there's really a couple reasons. The major ones being, like, Kickstarter's great. I don't have anything against Kickstarter, but it's kind of like, counter service. It's like, well, here's my project, and you fill out the what you need to fill out, and they'll let you just launch it. They're not gonna advise you really too much. They're not going to interact with you too much, and there's just not a lot of guidance. And it's not specific to films. It can be, anything. And it's huge. There's just an ocean of projects on there. And, as I approach this film, my thinking was the people that are really going to drive this are not like other people that are interested in independent film. It's going to be the community. If it's going to happen, it's because the community is going to get behind it. And does the community really care, what the URL is of the fundraising platform? Right. So the other benefit to Seed and Spark is that they sort of, well, first of all, they have an 82% success rate, which is quite a bit higher than Kickstarter. I think Kickstarter is down around 30%. Yeah. And Seed and Spark also focuses specifically on films. They do allow some other types of projects in, but they are built sort of around funding independent films. And so that was an encouragement. But what really drew me in probably was the fact that they had a process, and you have to do the things within the process in order to get approved for launch. You can't just, whip through their forms and, like, and then just put it out there. It's like you have to demonstrate that you have a plan, you have to demonstrate that you have a following, and you have to demonstrate that you can realistically accomplish the goal. Like, it's, they've done an awful lot of studying of the metrics and, like, what makes a campaign succeed or fail, and they want you to meet certain benchmarks before you'll just go. And, like, I can understand how that might turn a lot of people off. Like, oh, I don't want you telling me how to do this. Right. But I was kind of the opposite. I'm like, yeah, actually, I would appreciate some insight on, like, how to do this because, well, A, I want it to succeed, and B, it's been a lot of work up to this point, and I don't want to cause it to crater just because of my own, pride or right. ignorance. Yeah. So they were great along that line. And the other thing that was sort of, a major factor is Kickstarter, to my knowledge, it's all or nothing. You set a goal, and if you're not at 100% of that goal, that's it. And Seed and Spark has a policy that, like, if you reach 80% of your goal, you're funded, you're given those funds. And, so, I mean, to be honest, that was a draw too, that, like, okay, well, they really want you to succeed. They want to help you and come alongside you, not just be, a platform for you to kick out a project that maybe nobody that doesn't get funded. They're invested in you succeeding. So yeah, I looked at a couple different platforms, but pretty quickly narrowed it down to them. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, I always ask our guests with crowdfunding campaigns, do you have a backup plan?
Yeah. I mean, the backup plan is probably 80%, but after the backup plan after 80% is probably like, well, what can I, if it's a complete fail, like what can we do with what we have?
I mean, it's just important because we had some people on here in the show that had to try like 2 or 3 times, to be honest.
Yeah.
And we had some people on this show that gave up after the first failure. And I'm like, man, you did so much pre-production, you did pre-orders and all that stuff. Yep. And you still decided to not give it a second go. Yeah. And I've always found this so sad, to be honest, because I mean, why don't you try the second time? Why not trying, as you say, reaching more people the second time?
Yeah, I think definitely it's like we've kind of come too far to just discard the entire thing, because I up to this point it's been all my own personal it's been a personal passion project and personally funded, but it got to a point where I'm like, well, this is what I could do up to this point under my own steam, and now I need the community to either believe in it or not, but hopefully they will, and they can see the quality of it and the direction of it, and hopefully they'll get behind it. But yeah, it would be tough. I think if we were not funded, I would want to try to find a way to at least develop out the stuff that we have, and in whatever form that could reasonably take. And it's hard to know where that would go. Like one of the things I was really shocked about and really encouraged by, but was when we put the 10-minute preview out there, I was thinking, well, if this gets like 5,000 views in the first month, I'll be happy, and like we'll keep going, and like pretty quickly, like I think in the first 2 days it got 5,000 views, and then it just kept going up and up and up. And in the first month it reached 69,000 views. I was shocked. So I do think there is a lot of interest out there. I think the trick is getting people to cross over from, man, that's really cool, to like, okay, well, I'm gonna actually put some of my hard-earned cash behind it and try to make it happen. And unfortunately, like you were saying, there are a lot of examples of either projects that don't get funded and then nothing happens, and they're just completely abandoned, or projects that do get, this is a sad reality, projects that do get funded and then they don't really live up to their advertising, or they just blow through their timeline. They're 3, 4, sometimes even longer years delivering outside of their promised timeline. And so I think that again goes back to, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I want to be careful. I want to respect people and their commitment, and sort of be a, I don't know, man of my word, I guess, for lack of a better colloquialism. So yeah, I mean, right now I would say I'm just I'm focused every day on like, how can I get word about the campaign out there more so that we do succeed, and then it's not a question.
Right, you're right.
So that's plan A, and plan B is like, drop back and punt and see what can we do, and maybe, if that happened, and maybe if we did develop the 4 interviews out that we have and put them out there for people to see, then, like you said, maybe there would be a second round where it's like, oh, now people have really, I was trying to circumvent that in the beginning by developing a 10-minute preview so people could really see, oh, this is, A, going to be quality, and B, we're going to interview people that are well known and big part of the community. But, it could end up that won't be enough. and that people will want to see more before, they'll really get behind it. But I hope not.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a process.
I mean, I just signed up during the interview here, and see one disadvantage already for Europeans. Many of us don't have Apple Pay or credit cards.
Okay.
That is cards?
Because they only allow Google Pay, Apple Pay, and credit cards. No PayPal, no bank account, nothing. That might be a bit difficult. That might be a bit difficult for Europeans.
So Europeans don't carry credit cards.
Most don't. The problem is that the requirements to have a free credit card are very high. So you need to work at least 2 years at the same employer. It has to be an unlimited work contract, and you have to earn a certain amount of income each month, so you are allowed to have a free credit card. Wow. And if you aren't allowed to have a free credit card, the German banks, they are killing you with yearly fees just to get a credit card.
What about like a debit card or something that kind of operates the same way?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The debit card, the master debit card, has just been introduced in July this year.
Okay.
Because in Germany and Europe in general, we shut down the Maestro debit card system. But still to this day, not all banks here in Germany have issued the master debit cards. So it's still an issue. Just wanted to explain. I mean,
yeah, no, that's great. That's a great piece of education for me. I would have no idea about that.
Yeah. I mean, personally, when I was working 2 years at my current employer, the first thing I got is like a free credit card, because I was like, yay! Now I'm allowed to get a free credit card. But before 2014, I wasn't allowed to get one.
Wow.
Because I was only working at employers that would make a time-limited working contract. So like a year, and then they would reconsider hiring you or just let you go,
Oh, okay.
That's the thing.
Sort of contractual basis then.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that is why, I mean nowadays I could use Apple Pay because I have an iPhone.
Yeah, so. You can use Apple Pay.
Yeah, I think that I've had several intersections with issues like that. Probably, again, it's a learning process for me, and I wanted to create some incentives for the funding campaign. And like one of the very first things I did was like, oh, we're going to give away, an original 64 that's all restored and repaired and ready to go. And like, because I just have no idea how international shipping works and VAT and import fees and stuff like that, I'm like, well, I'm going to limit it to North America. And it's an NTSC machine, so people overseas probably don't want it. Man, was I wrong. I had a couple angry messages from people about why can't we bid on the, or not bid on it, why can't we be a part of it? And I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Won't make that mistake again. And right now we're auctioning off an Evo board, and this goes to show you the kind of things that you run into when you make an effort like this. But Daryl Westbury, one of the guys involved with the Evo 64, he very graciously donated a prototype board. It was like the last prototype before they did their final release. So it has everything. It's all feature complete. But he said, yeah, you can auction this off and then the proceeds can go to the film. And I thought, oh man, that's really kind. That's really awesome. And I thought, oh man, but international shipping. I'm like, I know, I'll do it through eBay because eBay will handle all that for me, no problem. And sure enough, I go on eBay, I set up the auction, and international shipping is turned on by default. And I'm like, oh, great, perfect. Everyone will be happy. Everybody will get a chance to, bid on it. And like, I would say maybe in the first 12 hours, I started getting messages like, why can't, someone who was pretty nice from the Netherlands was saying, really, you should allow this to be bid on in the Netherlands because people will be interested. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean you can't? And then like not even a half hour later, this guy is like, hey, I live in Canada. You have people in your film from Canada, and I can't bid on this. I'm like,
yeah,
what?
yeah.
And I call eBay, which is amazing that you can actually get someone on the phone at eBay. And that's like a 45-minute call trying to figure out why international shipping had been banned on this item. And they said, oh, it looks like because they think it contains batteries or other dangerous flammable electronics. And then I contacted Daryl, and he was like, oh, yeah, that's happened to me before, and I've had to talk to them, and da-da-da-da. And so, I had pumped out a bunch of posts about, how we're auctioning off this Evo 64 and all these different places with the URL. So, like, they won't let me alter anything now that the auction is running and there's bids on it. And I'm like, this is really frustrating. So I had to cancel that auction and restart it with new settings that basically said that I was going to handle the international shipping. And so, yeah, it's just stuff like that, like, can make you just want to go insane. Like, you put all this time and effort into something like that, and then one silly thing that you can't control, like, can bring the whole thing down. So, like, yeah, it's just marketing for it in general. It's like I mean, I have a full-time job as a filmmaker at another organization, but like trying to market the film and get the word out there about it and do promotions and write people back, and it's another job.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were ready to talk about it today.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm excited about it, and and I really appreciate you guys asking me on to do it.
Absolutely, that's what we're here for.
Exactly. I mean, we had quite some projects regarding such things, Yeah.
Currently, I'm looking at the project page. There's 16 days left until deadline. You're about 20%, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. As far as their data goes, we're like average.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was kind of like, oh, but they have all these metrics, and it's like, oh, okay, we're doing about what most campaigns normally do.
Yeah.
There's kind of this, like, in the beginning, there's kind of a huge kickoff, and then you tend to gain a lot of ground in the beginning. Then week 2, it kind of goes down quite a bit, and then towards the end it sort of ramps up. Hopefully,
kicks up again. Yeah,
you hope, and that's what I'm hoping for. And definitely, but yeah, it can be nerve-wracking for sure.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, we're hoping to see it happen and doing what we can to get the word out there. Of course, you guys were gracious enough to give me time here, and like this past Saturday, there's another computer show, retro computer show in Canada called World of Retro Computing, and they had me on, which was really nice, and like that's just again what I've experienced throughout the community. People are really just welcoming, and they wanna get the word out about things like this, about new projects, new hardware, new software. And so yeah, that's really awesome, that the doors are kind of wide open. So yeah.
Right.
Awesome. I mean,
very cool.
Personally, I hope for the Blu-ray pledge.
Oh yeah.
To happen, to be honest.
Yeah, I do too. And that's another thing that I just, I kind of made, ignorantly made some assumptions and turned out to be wrong. I thought, I've been doing video for 25 years. I'm like, people don't want Blu-rays. They would rather just be able to watch it, load it up on the TV and watch it.
I'm different. I'm different.
Well, you're not the only one. Like almost nearly immediately, I started getting feedback from people that like, hey, like, how come there's no Blu-ray incentive at any level? Like I'm really not interested in funding this if I don't get a Blu-ray disc out of it. I'm like, oh, well, it's not that hard to do. Like I've authored Blu-rays before and stuff like that. It takes time, but if there's enough people who wanted it, that would be cool. I mean, the expense of it, of course, is the replication. And there's sort of like a minimum bar, like you have to run 1,000. You're going to pay to run 1,000, whether you run 1,000 or not. And so there's sort of that. So that's like I at the beginning of the campaign, I had that way up high. Like, okay, yeah, if we reach this insanely high number, then we'll do Blu-rays. And now I lowered it down to like just above our initial goal of 25,000. And so like if we get a little bit above that and there's enough room to do Blu-ray discs, like happy to do it. And just didn't realize like how important that might be to some people. And like I guess from a certain perspective, I can see that. It's like you want to have you invested in this thing and you want to physically have something that you can put your hands on. And so yeah. That makes total sense. And like, it's like that. We all talk about that with software today, right? Back in the day, you'd go to, here in the States, Electronics Boutique or wherever, and, you buy the big box and all the artwork on it and you'd get that and take it home. And nowadays it's like, download.
Yeah, right.
And all that sort of, with some exceptions, people who are still producing box games, new box games, but it's kind of a, something that's from a bygone era. That's kind of sad that we've lost that on a lot of levels, but definitely I'm happy that there's still people out there developing games. So what would you guys say is the most impressive game that you've seen in recent years for the 64?
Definitely. Now I forgot its name.
I'm thinking Sam's Journey.
Sam's Journey. Yeah. That was the name. Yeah.
And also the Super Mario Brothers conversion.
Yeah.
The 1-to-1.
And the Sonic
version. Yes.
The Sonic one.
Yes.
Yeah, Sonic. Yeah, I agree. I was blown away by Sam's Journey. I'm like, what? How? Yeah. I mean, it's like, how is this possible? Like, this is like an NES level game.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, I know now, but didn't know back in the day that like they got the same processor. So I guess that makes sense in some levels, but there's just, I guess, so much more advanced tools now to develop software and machine language and
we are glad that we got Chester Colson as a guest to interview.
Oh, cool. Well, we just glad that we have Chester Colson.
Okay. We did. Yeah.
We just glad that we have him in the world.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
An interview that you guys did that I really enjoyed was with now I'm going to forget his name. John Kuchner, am I saying that right? The guy who wrote Space Taxi.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's off. He's got a whole different life and is not involved, of course, in developing games for the 64 anymore. But that was a game that I played when I was younger, and still that game is like, whenever I'm like, well, I got 10 minutes, I get that out, and it's just so, I don't know, it's fun. It's my kind of game. I like Jupiter Lander too, so maybe that just is something about the kind of game I like.
I played that with my grandfather as a kid as well.
I close my eyes at night and still see Space Taxi. Yeah, it's burned into my brain.
Pet 1, please.
Yeah.
But it was really fascinating interview you guys did with him, and like it was so cool to hear all the inside stuff about how he did it. Even that thing you just mentioned about his voice and about how that's really his voice and how he like somehow. Oh, I just made hardware where I could record my voice. It's like, well, how did you do that?
Right, yeah.
How did you know how to do that?
If that interests you, I also interviewed Forrest Moser, who invented speech synthesis.
Oh, wow.
That's so if you want to learn more about that,
you guys have an extensive catalog. Yeah. You guys, you definitely should be proud of all the stuff that you've covered. Like, I mean, that's a great thing. There is so much stuff out there, with people who were a part of the industry back then. But there's still there's an endless amount of things that you could cover. So kudos to you guys for like preserving that. Like, through what you're doing right now, you're helping, you're helping to preserve history, which is really a cool thing to do.
We do what we can.
You too with the movie then.
Yeah. I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
From the user perspective, not from the inventor perspective.
That's right. That's right. That's the only perspective I have.
I mean, it makes sense. Why would you do the 5th movie interviewing the engineers from Commodore?
Right.
Yeah. Or the fall of Commodore, or the mistakes they made, or something. It's like it's been documented to death.
Right. Yeah. And there's books and all that stuff is great. It's not to knock that stuff at all. I'm glad it's out there. And then you have a lot of people out there who are preserving other aspects. Dave McMurtry, who's like, if you've ever heard of him, he's like preserving. He's somebody we hope to interview for the film, and he's doing a lot of preservation work of documents and stuff that came from Commodore that, probably without his efforts, would just be gone. So it's really cool. It's really cool how there's different people in the community who are preserving different parts of not only Commodore's history or Commodore 64, but other stuff too.
Right.
So there's people who are doing, floppy preservation. And just today I was reading, like, some lady was like, oh, I helped to write these educational games and I have them on floppies and I'd like to, archive and preserve them, but I just don't know anything about doing it. And like, boom, instantly people from this Facebook group jumped in and this guy's like, I can do it. And I'm going to be really careful with it. I'm a data preservationist. That's my trade. And so, I want to get, and things like archive.org exist now.
Yes.
Like, that's really cool.
Which we also interviewed.
Oh, hey, there you go. Yeah.
But the hardest part here was to make him not speak about the demo scene, because he was so much about demo scene, amazing. And I'm like, man, we wanted to talk about archive.org, not about the demo scene, So.
Yeah. Well, the demo scene is pretty amazing. It, when I was at World of Commodore, that really is the first time that I saw some of that stuff in person. And I was just floored. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, that's a Commodore 64? Like, doing that? Like, I can't put my mind around how they can get it to do some of the things that. And I also saw a pet that was doing live video capture and converting it into.
I've seen that one. Yep.
I mean, people are just so creative, and they've come up with so many different things, and it just keeps going on and on and on. So,
I'm a coder, and I still can't wrap my brain around how they had to do some of that stuff.
Yeah, it's beyond me. It's definitely not my gift at all. So try to stay in my lane and produce films.
Just one thing to mention, perhaps. You said in our emails conversation that whether you would include Europe in your movie depends on how much you reach as a funding. Because of travel expenses and so on. Perhaps could you tell us a bit more about that? I mean, what's the, the burden level where you would say, okay, we would go global at this point?
Yeah, so there are interviewees in North America who, they're at some level of commitment to being involved with the film if we're funded. So they're really the first priority. But if we get funded past a certain point, and it's hard to say what that point is, but there are other people in other areas of the world who I've contacted and are interested in, or not interested. I've told them I'm interested in having them be a part of the film, and would they consider it? And some of them have affirmed that they would. So, again, it's like, well, it's all going to hinge on like, what is the amount of money we bring in? And, what can we reasonably do with that funding? So, I kind of wrote about it too in the blog on the website about why we made that decision early on and limiting the scope of the film. So once again, it doesn't become this behemoth of, just something that we can't accomplish. And like, yeah, it would be great. I mean, I love any excuse to go to Europe, but it will totally depend on the funding that comes in and how, and determining how can we use that the best. Like if we can only go to one place overseas, where should that be and who should it be? And, what would really be the best? And, we're going to get flack no matter what we do from some people, but we're going to do our very best, like I said, to represent the community as best we can. And we hope because of that the community will get behind it.
Or you make a second part, the European edition. Yeah, part 2. European edition,
Yeah, that would be true, and that's something that I think I have talked about, and I think I even talked about that in the blog. But what would be awesome is that, like, if this gets funded and successful, and then people really like it, then maybe we do another film where it's like, the other side of the pond. Like we're gonna spend all our time overseas and really cover that side. I think that's kind of part of the conventional wisdom we're trying to follow here is like, if we try to do it all, we're not going to do anything well. If we focus on one thing, maybe we can do that really well and spin that off into, more success, more development, even more films. So,
well, I love the fact that it focuses largely on NTSC as it is, because most of the stuff that you see focuses more on the European scene, because it was arguably a bigger scene over there than it was here. And it was a different kind of a scene than it was over here.
And I think that like there's been other people in the community who have sort of given me that kind of feedback, like, the European scene is great, but it feels like a lot of things are focused on the European scene, and it's kind of refreshing to see something that's focused on North America. There's a whole scene in South America too, like right, with the Dream, and like maybe that's the third film. I don't know.
We got Argentina interviewed as well.
Yeah, we got the contacts for you. Yep.
You guys have already done it. So there's no need. Yeah, and that's kind of another thing we did that was hard because it limited us, is like, well, we want to do everything on site. Like we want to go to where the people are, interview them in their context, in person, and that limits what you can do, because you can't go everywhere and you can't do everything. Right. So, you just try to be smart and wise and do the very best you can with the resources that you have. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, so where can people find out more about you, actually?
Sure. Oh, about me personally, that'd be pretty boring.
I mean, do you have some social media and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So we're on all the social media things, like, it's facebook.com/iadoremy64film. Instagram, same thing, instagram.com, iadoremy64film. Same with X or Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days. But probably the best. Probably the best place to go is just iadoremy64film.com, because that's where the main website is, and then our campaign link is there. And also, I mean, if people are interested, I don't know that too many people would be, deeply interested, but there's a blog on there where I've sort of documented our entire journey, starting all the way back in 2020. And, it's had some ups and downs. And there was a couple times that I thought, like, this is the end. Right. We just can't go on from here. And, just the hills and valleys that we've gone through, there's a couple other people who are involved, and I've really appreciated their help. One friend of mine in particular, Dan, who's been sort of associate producer and second cameraman, who couldn't have done it, couldn't have gotten this far without him. So, just detailing all that stuff on there. So that's fun if you're interested in that sort of thing. And you can obviously contact us through the website, but if you want to reach out to us through email, it's just iadoremy64film@gmail.com. So yeah, all the normal social media stuff is out there, not too hard to find. And the YouTube channel, if you just go on YouTube and Google, if you go on YouTube and search Idor my 64 film, you're gonna find it. Like it'll come right up. So you can watch a 10-minute preview, and there's a couple other videos we have on there that has some content with a couple of the interviewees, just some short stuff, them making statements about different aspects of the Commodore 64 and Commodore in general, and like the pitch videos on there. And yeah, really welcome feedback and input, and from the audience, because it's a film that's intended to be about the community and for the community. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Well, awesome, you guys. I've got to run, but thank you so much for doing it.
And I go to bed.
All right, yeah, you get some sleep. Thank you, AJ. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.